Let's go. We in here. Let me make sure we're looking live on the Facebook, but we should be good to go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's up, folks? Back at it every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time with my boy Eric DeJean and Herschel Hudson with the Freedom Unleashed show, showing individuals how to tap out of the handcuffs that the world tries to put us in, and most importantly, reach our full potential and full capabilities and surround ourselves with the right people. Appreciate everyone jumping in. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Fellas, what are we talking about today? What's the topic of discussion here?
Herschel, I think it was your idea, man. So if you want to go ahead and just tell us
We're going to kill the ego. How do we get rid of the ego? How do we stop caring about what other people are thinking about us and start only caring about what we think about us, right?
That's big. It's big, man. I see it all the time. Like, people care like how they look in comparison with other people. Like, and it all revolves around like self-esteem and like self-confidence. Like, as long as you feel good about yourself, that's all that matters. It's really all that matters. Who the fuck cares what other people think? Like, who cares what this person thinks about how you look, how you're dressed, how you talk, how you speak, how you operate? Like, I used to be like that. Back in high school, I was always worried about what other people thought about me. And it literally like put me in like a cage, if I might say, like always worried about other people. Like, dude, like, who cares? Like, are these other people like making me money? Are they helping me create more income? No.
Not the ones that are worrying you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, like we are out to help ourselves, to help other people, right? So we've got to. I mean, everyone's always going to have an opinion, and it's not going to be. There's always going to be people who love you and people who hate you. And if you do something great, or if you want to do something great, or if you've already done something great, people are going to hate you. And if people don't hate you or are envious of you, then you're not moving in the right direction. If you're constantly, if people are just treating you like really good and really, they're not, you can tell that there's no hate, there's no envy, there's no jealousy, then you're just simply not taking enough action. And so we've got to decide for ourselves, like, do you want it to be you, to be the one that has the life that you deserve, so that way you can give it to other people and actually reach your full potential? Or did you want to have the regret that, man, it felt too good at the time to make everybody else happy other than myself. So I didn't want to get into sales. I didn't want to do the only commission. I didn't want to have the non-401k, the benefits, the things that society just tries to trap us all into doing, right? And that's the only thing you can say is, oh, I would have, I should have. So the easiest way to do it is we gotta instill the worth, like you were saying, Ryan. You're the reason why people care is because they don't have enough worth to believe, or to have their own opinion, right? Or to have a belief about that, they can live their life however they want to live their life. They, instead they listen to all these other people, they do the same thing. And then what happens is they, inevitably care too much. So they never actually get what they want.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say one of the lowest level activities is to like seek acceptance from other people. Like the lowest level of like living is like, man, I got to be accepted by him, by them, but be accepted by my friends, my coworkers.
How much time you waste just thinking about that?
Oh my gosh. Right? It kills you. It just ultimately kills you. Like, I was in high school and I was becoming like a completely different person than who I truly should and could be, because I was like, man, I want to be liked by this person. I want to be accepted by this group of individuals, right? Like, we're not in high school anymore, folks. Like, this is not a popularity contest. Like, I'm trying to become filthy rich. I'm trying to help other people become filthy rich, right? And we're not going to be able to get to that point if we're constantly worried about what they think about us, what he thinks about us. Like, dude, just do you, be yourself, and know that you're like you said, Eric, like you're so like the worth within inside of you is just so much higher than anyone else's opinion. Like, disregard anyone's opinion, disregard what they have to say about you, because ultimately, hey, you're going to start getting that hate and the unsolicited advice and suggestions and recommendations when you're operating at such a high frequency. Like when you're doing big things, like people are going to try to tell you like, don't do this, don't do that, or do this or do that. Like, no, just freaking do what you know you should be doing and be you and be unique and differentiate yourself. Like, be different, right? Everyone's trying to be like everyone else. Everyone's trying to fit into what society wants us to be: average, middle class, victims, right? We don't have time for that. If you're looking to create success, we don't have time for that. Not whatsoever.
100%.
What would you say? That's a great point. I got a follow-up question for you guys here. What would you say is some of the most common examples of people that can't drop their ego to get to the place that we're talking about here?
Like a person? Like who specifically that we all know?
Not specifically, just like in general.
like somebody famous that's fallen that couldn't overcome their ego? I mean, that's just going to be super common. I mean, if you've ever had a relationship that you miss to this day, that's pretty much an example of you not being able to overcome your ego to, reestablish that relationship. Not necessarily that you want every single random person in your life, but I know one thing I don't want any more of, and that's any more enemies. I don't need any more people on this earth that hate me that actually know me, right? Because most of your haters are going to hate you until they know you, right? That was like Mike Tyson or somebody, I can't remember. No, it was some bodybuilder was saying, he's like, you get all this hate on the internet. He's like, but whenever I meet these people in real life, all they show me is love. He's like, anytime someone sees me on the street, he's like, they come up and show me love. He's like, but on the internet, he's like, they're all, hateful. But if somebody has been in front of me and to let, my insecurities or ego cause me to talk to them in any way that they wouldn't want to be, or to lose my temper, or to not consider their feelings for a second, maybe in how I was talking. And now I've like damaged that relationship. And I basically have a walking bad review out there saying horrible things about me to anybody that are true, right? If they're like true, maybe I could have been nicer to that person. Maybe I should have been more considerate. Maybe I should have apologized quicker. Maybe I should have let my ego go and stop trying to get people to see it my way, right? I feel like that's been one of my biggest issues in my whole life. It's always trying to get people to see it my way. And something that I really admire about you guys whenever I hang out with you and whenever I see you around is that, you're really, really good at making sure that it doesn't matter what other people are thinking about what you're thinking about, as opposed to so many people get so upset. And almost every argument is really just some egomaniac pleading his case on why he's right to an audience that isn't going to buy anything from him. At least not after he gets done.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big things that comes to my mind is, the biggest indicator overall, if somebody is not willing to lose their ego to go to the next level, is how coachable are they? Right? Do you have the common sense to say, holy shit, that guy is already a professional athlete. He's already a professional bodybuilder. They're already a professional foodie, whatever the hell you would call a nutritionist, right? He's already making millions or billions. Maybe I should figure out exactly what it is that they're doing, so that way I can get to where they are. But if somebody has a big ego, they can't see that because their ego's in the way. So what happens is they don't end up actually taking that advice, and they think, they literally sabotage themselves because they think, if I actually do that, then they're going to look better than me. And I don't want that, because in my mind, who are they to think that they're better than me? And look at me, I'm this, that,
I do this.
right? And it's just an insecurity. And
Right.
what happens is the only thing you have to show for it in the end is 10 years goes by and it's like, holy shit, this guy's really blown up way more than even when we were kind of like a little level. And I'm still sitting here. And the only thing I got is I didn't do any of the shit that he did or she did, because my ego got in the way of me actually getting to that level.
Right.
That's ultimately what happens, you know. We sometimes, and I've even been there before. Like sometimes I think like sometimes I'm even like better than like it all revolves, before I even jump in that, it all revolves about like who you surround yourself with. Because if you're surrounded by like low level people and they're not succeeding at a high level, you're gonna have a bigger ego. Like if you already have like any type of ego, like you're going to have that ego if you're surrounded by people who are succeeding at a low level. You're going to think you're that big fish in a small pond. And that sometimes gives you that ego. And that's why I love to be around, like I'm here in Miami, and just it always just like flattens me out of like, man, I'm nothing. Like I don't have that ego that holds me back, because I know that my potential is so much greater than what I'm actually doing. And I know that, and it's like that ego just holds so many people back. It holds so many people back from really tapping into their full potential. Like just thinking that they're all good, thinking that they know everything, right? And having just like ignorance as well. Like that individual that thinks they know everything, stemming back to what Eric said, like coachability. You know, I'm always just soaking in information. I don't even care who it's from. Like I can learn something from anyone. Right. And if you get to a point where like, I can't learn from this person, like they haven't made millions of dollars, I can't learn a single thing from them. Like, hey, you're limiting yourself, because you can learn something from everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what walk of life. Like you can pick away something. So it's like
you can learn what they're doing wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
What to
like,
do and what not to do.
Right.
you just got to remove that ego. I mean, it's something I see with so many people. So many people.
Here's the thing too, is like everybody on planet Earth has some sort of ego, especially males. Dudes are all very arrogant ego, right? Everyone has an ego because they all want to be the best, because they want to show off for that girl or that get that shit, like to show society that they're great. Whatever. Mainly comes from like insecurities for a lot of people, right? And they would rather have that than actually have the money and the shit and the the pride. And they just want everyone else to think that's what they would do with it, right? But the difference between people, because a trait of the highly successful is they believe that they are better than everybody. Like they think, oh, that he can do it, I can do it, and that is a positive quality. But the difference between those who actually have that and can have that, and those who have that and shouldn't have it, is how much action you take, right? Because you can have that attitude, but if you're not backing that up with massive levels of action, then you don't put in the work yourself, then there's no way you're ever going to actually get to the point where you think you're better than yourselves and you prove it to yourself over and over again. Because if you don't take action, then you're just proving it to yourself that you're a fucking loser, because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And then what happens is the more you do that to yourself, it just chips away at your self-esteem, your insecurities. And then you become more and more prone to doing it just quicker and worse. And it just becomes terrible until you fix it. So, and if you don't take care of it, then that's what leads to things like not being coachable. Somebody could say, oh, well, I sold, a bunch of insurance. I sold, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of insurance 2 years ago, Ryan. Why would I listen to you? Well, I mean, look at the guys. Like, you haven't been working for 2 years because you a bunch of stuff happened in your personal life, because that's usually what happens to those types of people, right? And then they did this, that, and the other, and blah 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 blah. They have this whole lifelong victim story of what happened and why you should feel bad for them. And then from there, it's just like recognize, like they can't recognize, like, wow, they actually have elevated so much. Like, look at the growth, boom, 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 year over year, month over, maybe I should do what they're doing and just shut up and listen, right? Because if you don't have what somebody else has, that means that they know something that you don't know. So in that case, you should probably just shut up and listen to them, because they'll show you exactly what to do as long as you're coachable, you're willing to do whatever it takes, and you show that you'll put in the work.
100%. While you were, something you said made a lot of sense, is that like, a lot of people are just so worried about like what the other people are thinking of them, so much to the degree that it gets like to insanity, where someone would actually prefer to be in a management position making $16 an hour because there are 4 or 5 people on this earth that are forced to listen to them and that they feel like they're above, and inflates their ego, than they would $100,000 or $200,000 job where they have to be a grunt or a pissant in the organization and nobody gives them this respect that they demand, right? And I think these same people are probably people that have violent tendencies at home, are super upset in their life, have no control, and they're literally willing to sacrifice a good life just to stroke their ego and to be surrounded by people who are basically in a even lower level of life, that are, in some situation where they have to work for a person like this for however long that person is able to maintain that small position of power until they do work their way back to the bottom of whatever organization it is. And it seems like it's really only their ego that would make sense. I think that's why most people can't get into sales and never ever get into even 6-figure territory in their lifetime, is because they would just so much rather that people treat them a certain way, and they just have such a standard for what people have to do, how much respect they have to be given, and they'd rather just pay with it with the rest of their life, instead of just accepting that this is how the market is. This is how the world is. The world is going to treat you how you treat it. You have to care and give first before this world cares to you. You hear so many people that are all the time, screw him, I don't care what he thinks. And the people saying this really do care, right? Is what you notice, that they're actually super upset that they're losing. And they say, screw everybody. And what happens to them? Everybody's screwing them every time you talk to them. So everybody's out to get them, but they're really out to get everybody, and they can't understand how it works. And then there's the other people who selflessly give until miracles and cool stuff eventually happens to them. Because if you work a certain level, right, if you're moving quick enough, all of the losses cannot take you down, because you're just going to get lucky with too many wins that are going to come as the result of actually doing the right thing. But if your ego won't let you, demands that people treat you a way in which you do not deserve, then you're not going to be able to actually get out there, because you're going to be way too concerned with your ego and who you are. I mean, in fact, like I was just looking up the definition of ego. If you look up the definition of ego, it's a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, right? And so it's whenever, like Eric was saying, when you have a lot of insecurities and you're not sure who you are and what your worth is or what your place is on this planet and why you matter or who you matter to, then it's like you feel you have to convince the rest of the world, right? And that their belief in you will solidify your belief in you, as opposed to having this solid foundational belief in yourself that's unshakable, to where it now does not matter when people try to cast doubt onto you. Right? Whenever people try to cast their doubt and insecurities, you always recognize now that it's just a problem with them. And you're not upset about anything, because nothing they say is true, because you already know what's true. Or even if it is true, it doesn't hurt you. It's not something you're unaware of, right? It's like the insecure guy gets so upset whenever somebody tells him who he is, because he's eaten alive by it, and he's lying to himself every day. And then he finally hears this person say what he's been telling himself, and now he's mad at them because he doesn't want it to be true. And for one moment, he thinks that person in front of him is him, and he starts arguing with himself and attacking this person who really he should be attacking himself. It's like a Chinese saying, a strong man is hard on himself, but a weak man is hard on others. And I mean, obviously you need to push people, like Grant talks about, control to, do whatever it is. But is it that you're trying, once your ego starts getting hurt, once you're saying things no longer for the purposes of constructive criticism, but for the purpose of hurting another individual and because they attacked something that was personal to you, so now you want to attack them in other areas of their life. I noticed that with people that I've tried to help get better at sales. As soon as I tell them anything wrong that they are doing in sales, immediately they want to pull out any sort of personal thing they may know about me as a reason to discredit my opinion on trying to help them. Now, obviously, I can take responsibility for whatever rubbed them wrong way enough or not being tactful enough to deliver my message without upsetting them. But it's still their fault that they got upset. I can't make them upset. They can only upset themselves. And obviously, the insecurity in their sales ability then triggers them to say mean things to me about whatever. My security makes it to where it doesn't matter. And thankfully, that's something that we happen to read about in every book I think that I see is almost every entrepreneur that seems to have made it has addressed this issue in his mind.
It's funny because sometimes like successful people, they get described as having this type, like having an ego, right? Because they walk around, they're so confident, they're so self-assured of themselves, and they have this high self-worth and self-esteem that people on the outside looking in, they're always like, man, like this person's got this dude's got such a big ego. Man, look at the way he dresses, look at the way he talks fast, he talks confident. And it's like, man, like it's just
so cool.
Because what's that?
He thinks he's so cool. Like it's just
What does
them.
he think he is?
Think about you, right?
Exactly. And it just self-reflects what that other individual, how they're getting eaten up on the inside. Like you were saying, Herschel, of like, man, like I know I can be that great in my life, but I've held myself back from really achieving greatness. So it's like,
Right.
There's always those people on the outside that are like, man, that you got such a big ego. They're trying to recommend you to, stop being so outlandish, to stop being so confident. Like, no, dude, this is what you need to really break free of the trap that the universe tries to put on us. Like you need confidence in yourself. You need high level of self-esteem, a high level of worth that you're worth,
Right.
high levels of achievement of success. Like you need that. But it does come to a point where sometimes like people get way too ahead of themselves and their head gets way too big and they think like they are the best. Whereas like, the most highly successful, they always know that, they're always capable of achieving more. Right? They always know that. And it's something that's helped me tremendously, throughout the years is like, man, I have high self-confidence, high self-belief in myself, high self-worth, but always knowing that I can always do better. Just like that simple fact of like, man, I can always do better. Because I don't want my ego to hold me back from really tapping into my full potential. And that's ultimately what happens. These people start to get some type of success in their life, some type of wins and victories, and then their head gets so bloated. Like they're like, oh, I'm the best. I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to do this. I don't need to repeat these successful actions. And the next thing you know, like that success that they created, it continually starts to go down because as we all know, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're going. So it's like, don't let the success give you this high self of ego in yourself. Bottom line.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a great point that you brought up, Herschel. It's the salesman that, they come to you and they're like, what, they try to discredit anything that you've said. And those are always the salespeople that can never break over $100,000 to $150,000 a year because their ego gets in the way from them breaking into make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million or more, right? Is because they just feel like they're so entitled because they can close a few deals that, they're irreplaceable, which obviously a great closer is amazing, but a lazy closer that's just entitled, that's like blah, 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 and I've seen and they spend more time complaining and bickering about bullshit. Like, dude, just get to fucking work and stop complaining, like do more. You realize you could, I would require work. But those are the people that they're comfortable. They're making 120,000. Yeah, I'm going to work 4 days this week and just go, hang out by my pool for, 5 days of the week too, like all day. So I'm not saying don't do that. I do that, but not that much. Like I grind, I put in, and when necessarily a lot of people probably wouldn't, so if you're in an industry where you're making a lot of money and you realize like you make a bunch of money and you're like, what? Like what I did when I first started making money was I got too excited, right? I still was always like, oh, I want to make way more. Let me grow. Let me listen. Let me learn. And that's what I did, right? But what I did was I spent all the money. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of the money. It's easier to spend all the money when you're in that mindset of, oh my God, like, but I'm great. Look at me. I can do it. I don't need anything else. Oh yeah, they're going to send me another 10 appointments next week. I'll make my $2,000 for the week, $3,000 for the week, and just not do anything else. So if you don't have that level of look, I know that I need to do more and learn from these people that are making way more money than me. And overall their life is better than me, not just financially, but overall their relationships, they're spiritual. They're clearly more competent. They're more at peace. They know who they are more. And overall, they're just living more of an aligned life, which is what we're meant to be, right? God put us on this earth to work and to figure out who we are. And we can't do that if we're not, if our ego is getting in the way of growing and learning.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, we when you have an ego, like you're literally, belittling other individuals, belittling yourself. Most importantly, I mean, you have that ego and you think you're the top dog when you're not really doing anything. So it stems back to what I was talking about earlier, like, man, just getting in the right surroundings, surrounding yourself with the right people, getting in the right environment that allows you to see like, man, you're not doing anything, get back to, the grind, get back to what has gotten you to where you've gotten. Because if you want to get to that next level, like you got to continue to do that, some of the grunt work, some of the dirty work, right? And not let that ego kind of like get a hold of you of like, oh man, I don't need to work anymore. I could take days off. Like you were saying, Eric, and just ultimately like I think having an ego is very suppressive on your own self. Like when you have an ego, like you're literally suppressing yourself. It's big time. So
right.
Man.
And dude, especially for someone like the younger we are as men, especially, the younger we are, the higher our ego is. And especially, I can remember 10 years ago, my ego was way more than it is today, but I was also way less competent because I didn't know as much stuff. But for somebody like you, Ryan, so this is a good question for somebody like you, right? You're 25 and you've been making really solid, like money that most people would probably never see in a year. Like the average person, even when they're, 60 years old or, you know what I mean? That it's going to take them a long time to make that amount of money. So for somebody like you, you made a lot of money at a really young age and you obviously have a place in Miami, Ohio, you got offices and all this stuff. So how do you continue to, make sure that you can have your ego at a low enough point to where you can still relate to all these people and help them to the point where you can, excel on your end without being like, oh, I'm good. Like they're doing everything. It's not me no more. Like I built this thing. Cause that's how people would get, right? Most people. So how have you been able to handle that?
It's a good question. I mean, me personally, I always look back to like where I came from, right? Like where did I come from? And ultimately like just viewing myself in their shoes as well. Like I just remember where I came from, 7 years ago. And that really just humbles me, right? I love to, just stay humble and I always know that everything can easily go away. Like everything that I've accomplished can easily go away. No matter how much success I have, it can easily go away. The universe can take it just like that, right? So, and just always knowing that everything is like, obviously I'm building my organization, building a business, like everything's like a team effort, right? And like, we all rely on each other to really, flourish and prosper. So, just always just viewing it in a realm of like, man, this is a group activity and knowing that I need other people's help, right? I'm always looking for help. Like I always am looking for help. I'm always willing to give help because that's just, you know, who I've been instilled within these last 7 to 8 years. Like just slowly learning more about myself, who I am, you know, the best possible version of myself, continually revealing the best possible version of myself, and just always knowing that truly, like I'm just here to help people, right? I'm just here to help people, bottom line.
Yeah, that's the perspective you really got to have, right? You put it, that's it right there, right? You know that, you know, God could take it away at any moment, right? But you also have what you've developed in the interim, what we've all developed, right, is a skill set that nobody can take away from you, which is communication, sales, negotiation, leadership, building teams, right? So that's really what is going to allow you to prosper regardless, right? So
Yep.
that's the outlook you got to have, right? Like they're important. The people are important because without them, you know, they're really the foundation of a home, essentially. You know, you get like, so.
Yeah, I've seen big business owners just get too caught up in like, man, I'm good, I made it, right? They let their ego get a hold of themselves, and next thing you know, their business isn't growing anymore. Their business isn't scaling anymore because, man, they let their ego get a hold of them, and they kind of like look at other people like they're such a lower person, right? And they think they're on the top of the mountain. They're on the top of the pedestal, whereas like you've gotten to where you're at because of the people on your team, because of the people in your organization, because of the people that you have in your life. So it's just like, man, I see it so often that like I'm always like viewing like what other people are doing and like, man, what are they doing wrong? And I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to have an ego like them. I want to stay humble because I know that humility is what's going to really allow me to really tap into that next level. And we all know that. Just staying humble, having humility, not letting the ego get the best of us, and not getting too much in our head. Like, oh, I'm a big shot, I'm a baller, right? Like you see these premature spenders, these premature ballers, they start getting some money, they think they're all that. Like, dude, like get away. If you have any of those people in your life, get away from them. Get away from those type of people, because if you have people around you in your life that have a big ego, you're gonna have a big ego as well. They're gonna like seduce you and influence you to think that you're all that, to think that you have so much, you know. So that's why it's so important to get around these big time players, big time thinkers, go to conferences and events. And it really, like me, it humbles the shit out of me. Like I'm like, dude, I'm doing nothing. Like I got so much more that I can accomplish. And I'm always studying these highly successful people as well. Grant Cardone, Alex Hormozi, like, dude, like, holy shit. Like Alex Hormozi, 32, 33 years young, $100+ million per year business, whatever it might be, multiple businesses that he's grown. I'm like, damn, like that's only 7 years away from me. Like I got to speed it up. Like I can't let this ego, you know, hold me back from getting to where he's at, or, you know, really tapping into my full potential. So, man, it's just constant evaluation and awareness.
You got 10 years, bro. He's 35, so you got 10 years.
Okay, got it.
You got that, man. No problem.
Don't let him. Don't. No, you got 3 years. Come on, let's speed it up. You know,
speed it up, man. Hey, that's, you know, what a lot of people talk about, right? Is if you give I think the quote was from like Elon Musk or something, where it was like, if you give yourself 3 months to hit a goal, it's going to take you 3 months. If you give yourself 3 days, you're going to get it done in 2 days, in fucking 16 hours, you know? So it's all about having that mentality that, you know, you got to speed it up. That's a great point, because that's really what's led me to where I'm at, as well as I've been, you know, kind of thinking about that a lot, is just, hey man, like time's flying, like, you know,
running out.
Not too long ago, I was 25, you know, now I'm 31, and the time has just flown by so quickly and that's what happens, right? So, and over, it takes dudes especially until they're like late 20s, early 30s to realize like, damn, I really got to speed it up. You know, I got to get going here. Like, I got to stop fucking around, stop hanging out with bums that are going nowhere, that, you know, just don't have any confidence or self-worth or desire to be great and have abundance, right?
You're telling me that you don't want to sit in a group full of losers and sit there and everybody tell stories to try and figure out who's the biggest, coolest loser of you all? That doesn't sound like fun to you?
Let's do it. No, but yeah, it's, you know, that's really what, that's, I mean, that's not really what ideally what I or what like would want to do, right? So I'm thinking, I'm like, shit, like I gotta speed up, right? Just like Ryan's talking about. I'm like, dude, time. Like you gotta think about time differently because time is what's most important. So to sit there and think like, oh, you know, there's a ton of time, dude. I'm 27 or I'm 34 or I'm 23. I got so much time, but dude, the idea is to be rich and young while you're still really healthy, not rich and fucking like 80 years old. Like why would you want to do that when you don't have to? There is other options, you know? So it's compressing that time to, and you have to find someone that's done it and then just duplicate it and do it and get it done. And then start building a team and helping other people, because that's really where the true like value of your life and your how you feel will be how many people you can help. So like I've been a solopreneur a lot since I've been, you know, in the entrepreneur space, right? But the time's probably half and half, right, over 4 years. But over like 2 or 3 years, just having team members, it's by far a lot more satisfying to be able to help somebody else make a living, right? Because that short-term investor, that really like, and that big investment, I should say, in the short term is going to pay dividends. And not only financially, but more importantly, how you feel, right? Because then the better you feel about it, you're like, I need to do that more. And then that becomes more important than making a little bit of money off of them, you know, because the relationships that now you have with them and their whole family, because you help them and all their friends, is worth way more money than just little pennies that people want to think about.
You know, it's good you said that. Actually, I watched a video of Gary Vaynerchuk, right? And I like a little dude. Sometimes when he was talking about, he's like, you small business owners, you guys are like the most entitled egomaniacs I've ever seen in my entire life. He's like, you just think that people should just feel so lucky and honored to get to work for you. Who are you? Like, you know, it's such a great point he made on, you know, the business owner ego. You're like, nobody does it as hard as me. Nobody wakes up as early as me. Nobody's going in like I am. And that doesn't matter. That's your own ego being reflected and bragging and patting yourself on the back as the reason why these people aren't doing what you want them to do, you know? And it's a real mind shift, and it's very difficult to set aside your ego. And even though, yes, you were the one orchestrating everything, and without you, everything wouldn't be possible, yada, yada, in your organization, you know, if you want to win, you have to switch it from I'm trying to make everyone else rich to they're making me rich. Thank you so much. Right. And like, otherwise nobody's going to want to help you, you know, at least not American people. Now, if you use people out overseas, I'm a big fan of that, and they're way nicer and easier to make happy. But if you want to work with American people who have all the opportunity and potential that you do, then you're going to have to leave your ego at the door. And even though I love outsourcing to other countries, and I love the exchange rates and how it helps them and me, there's just some things I need American people for. It's just in this American economy for what I have to do. And whenever it comes down to that, you know, at the end of the day, there really are, like Gary was talking about, he's like, my people, he's like, I've got great people. You know, I invested into finding and getting great people. He's like, and I know they can go anywhere. And I thank them and I'm excited that they choose to work for me, you know? He's like, and you got to get it out of your head that they work for you. They don't work for you. You work for them. I thought whenever I was starting a business, man, I'm tired of having a boss. I want to be the boss. And I went from having one boss who was really great at running the same kind of business to now I have like 1,000 bosses. I didn't know that every single customer and every single person I ever try to employ will be my boss. And then it's my job to make them happy and to solve their problems. And that's what I signed up for. And that it doesn't matter if it works out for me or not. I have to make sure it works out for them, or I didn't hold my end of the bargain because this was my idea. And if I'm going to take responsibility for all the good things that happen, I got to take responsibility for the bad things. I think Ryan was just posting that yesterday.
Yep. It's big time. I love it.
Love it so much. Yeah. I mean, as far as small business and everything else goes, I think that's like your biggest issue, because whenever you're an employee, you get to climb up, or wherever organization you're a part of, right? Whenever you're at the more of the bottom totem pole and you first get into sales, you start climbing up and your importance starts climbing up. And it was great. Like, it was a big realization, back when I was a salesman, the company I was working for before, I sold a bunch of deals, and I come in and, at the company meeting, and I'm, a king, I'm a superstar, I'm a stud. I sold a bunch of deals. I start my own company. I sell a bunch of deals, and nobody else sold too many, definitely not as many as me. I can't brag about it anymore. It's like, I sold a bunch of deals. Of course you did. You're the best. We all know that. I'm like, I got to find other people to lift up. Like, nobody cares if I win anymore. Everyone's opinion is, of course you're winning, right? Doesn't matter if it's, a struggle. It doesn't matter. And that's my biggest part of my ego, is thinking that my situation, what's going on with me, matters once I start trying to involve other people in it. And it's not, it's my responsibility to everyone else.
It's a great point you bring up. It's something that most people, and I haven't even thought about it till you told me about that concept, or till you talked about this a few years ago, is that, hey, you're employing them, but you're also working for them, right? Because your main job is to make them happy. Yeah, right? Is to make them happy.
They won't show up again if you don't.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that, but it's great as long as it's with the right people, right? And that's why it's the most important thing, is finding the right people. It's better to have 5 killers than 100 average salespeople that are going to ask you the stupid ass fucking questions, the same questions they ask you every day. They can't memorize a script. They don't know how to overcome objections. They don't know how to build a relationship, most importantly, with a human, and actually be able to read people. And they don't know how to negotiate and persuade properly, right? So I'd rather have 5 of those folks that know how to do that than have 110 average people that will once in a while sell a deal, but they're going to waste the fuck out of your time. And then it's going to be your fault, and they're going to come up with whatever victim mindset and sob story to tell you, as if the only fucking people that bad things happen to is them and nobody else, right? And so that's between somebody who's moving forward, who closes a lot of deals and can learn and adapt, and somebody who just doesn't close shit and is average, because they don't end up, moving forward and actually applying anything from those people.
Yes, sir. Man, this was a good one. Coming to everyone, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time every single Friday, talking about how to unleash the freedom that you deserve as a spiritual being. Talked about a little bit about ego today, how to not let your ego hold you back in life, with my guy Eric DeJean and Herschel Hudson. Anything you'd like to leave with the viewers today, folks?
Man, just always just always tell yourself that you know nothing and you got everything to learn. Because once you have that perspective and you start lowering how you approach people to their level, then, like you were saying, Ryan, dude, you can learn something from everybody, what to do or what not to do. But also, you gotta be willing to do what somebody says that's above you, that's further than you. Otherwise, hey, you're always going to be stuck in the same place. You either got two options, right? One option is to be where you want to be. The other option is to be where you don't want to be. So this is like something that all the high performers in any area professional of life have, is they were able to drop their ego so that they could move forward to that next level.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point. I talked about it briefly earlier, just, always be willing to do the dirty work or the grunt work that sometimes when you start to scale and grow and become highly successful, you don't think you need to do it anymore. But like, man, I'm willing to get my hands dirty. I'm willing to do those little things that seem like, oh, I don't need to do it. But, you always got to realize, like, that's what's gotten you to where you're at. Doing those, that dirty work, the grunt work, those little small tasks, whatever it might be. Right. I heard Alex Morton talk about it maybe a week or so ago. He's just talked about this exact thing of like always being willing to do the work that has gotten you to where you're at. No matter how small it might be, no matter how low value it might seem to you. I mean, it comes to a degree like, yeah, like you don't want to do low value activity, but if it's going to help you grow, it's going to help you scale. Like, just get rid of that ego and just do it. Right? You're never too good to do something. You're never too big to do something. I mean, that's what's going to really keep you humble. So stemming back to what Eric said, the most ignorant individual is the one that thinks they know everything about everything. Yep.
You don't need to tell your side of the story. You don't, it doesn't matter. That was my biggest thing with ego. They don't need to know your side of the story. Save your breath for a customer.
That's right. That's right. Good deal, folks. Well, we'll come at you next week, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and you guys have a good rest of your day. Yes, sir. That's right.